Welcome back. Now we're going to have a stand interview, and I'm delighted to be talking this afternoon to the International Trade Centre, which is a joint agency of the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. Well, when those two organisations come together, you'd expect that they'd be working on a clear challenge. And what they're looking to do is support the international competitiveness of small businesses in developing countries. And the theme for our stand is Small Businesses Go Green to Compete. And there's a great link to the previous conversation, because in the previous conversation we heard that it's women who tend to lead small businesses, particularly in developing countries. So here you're two organisations that really like to support SMEs to help them go green. So let me start by introducing Pamela Coke-Hamilton, the Executive Director of the ITC. Pamela, coming out of the COVID crisis, is going green really a priority for small businesses in developing countries and those who support them?
Thanks, Tamsin. It's really nice to meet you and very good to be here. There's no question. Yes, it's actually important, and it's going to be even more critical as we come out of COVID. 90% of all businesses are micro, small, or medium-sized enterprises, and they account for around 70% of jobs worldwide. So what small businesses do has a huge impact on the green transition. We see, for example, in our work with small businesses in developing countries, that there's often the misconception that going green needs high-end technology, is very expensive, and has no business case, and that is therefore only for multinationals. But there are actually many opportunities for small businesses that go green. And this is exactly what ITC's upcoming flagship report, the SME Competitiveness Outlook 2021, is going to show. Our research on how small businesses can empower the green recovery finds that nearly 60% of African firms surveyed by us said that greening their enterprise led to new, higher quality products, access to new markets, and lower input costs. And this is not least because international buyers are increasingly asking for transparency around the environmental footprint in their supply chain. It's also because consumers more and more demand sustainable products. Through this, it becomes clear that there's more to going green than only compliance. Going green is also about creating new opportunities for good business. And trade has a significant role to play in this context. It's not only about getting sustainable products to consumers, it is much bigger than that. Sustainable trade offers the promise of risk resilience, reduced costs, and growth opportunities. And it's not only better for our planet, it is fundamentally a better way of doing business. Thanks, Tamsin.
Thank you. Now let me turn to ANNEGRET BRAUSS. You lead the GreenToCompete initiative. So what is the ITC focusing on? Can you give us some concrete examples of all these wonderful benefits that Pamela told us about?
So at ITC, as Pamela said, we really see the transition to a green and inclusive economy as the defining challenge of our time. And working with small businesses in developing countries, we have asked ourselves the question, what does this really mean for them? And on the one hand, it could, of course, mean that they need to go green to survive, not only because of climate change, but also because it's becoming a market requirement. And so at GreenToCompete, we believe that SMEs can really go green to thrive. So through this initiative, ITC has committed to put environmental sustainability at the heart of our work. And it's with this aim exactly to capture the potential of what going green can mean to entrepreneurs and to small businesses in developing countries. For example, going green can stimulate new ideas, it can stimulate innovation that helps those businesses to grow, as well as to sustain the communities around them. So for these opportunities, however, to materialize, businesses, they do need support, capacity building, skills development, resources, and this is exactly where actors in the business ecosystem, like ITC, they are crucial. So to help develop government policies, business environments, or trade rules that favor environmental sustainability, and that, of course, favor the support to small producers. So, for example, in ITC, we're working in Morocco in the textiles and garment sector, where we're helping producers to move towards circular production practices to save water, to save energy, for instance. In the Gambia, we're training young entrepreneurs on green technologies, for instance, on renewable energy. In Central America, we're working on e-commerce for SMEs in order to support them to access new markets for the sustainable products that they have produced. And finally, also in collaboration with local business support organizations, we've established local hubs in developing countries to ensure that local answers are developed for the local problems from the transition in the green economy.
Thank you. So you've really dealt with the myths that exist, that going green requires a lot of technical knowledge, it requires a lot of equipment, it will be expensive, and that there will be no business return on making that investment, particularly as you look at the supply chains. And I'm interested in this connecting SMEs into the global supply chains. But one aspect of green is local, circular economy, trying to develop shorter supply chains. Do you see benefits for SMEs in going green, even in their local environment, not just part of these big global supply chains? Annegret, maybe you'd like to answer this, and then I'll come to Pamela.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. There's also local opportunity for this. And this is exactly what we see when we're working on circular economy, on resource efficiency. To give you a concrete example from the textile sector where we're working, a lot of waste gets produced through offcuts when clothes are produced. You simply cut the fabric, you manufacture clothing, but what happens to all these fabrics that are not used? And these exactly, instead of turning them into waste, burning them, incinerating them, they can actually serve as a business case to sell these types of offcuts and to create new products. That could be new washing clothes. It could mean new mattresses, etc. So there are really local opportunities in very small circles beyond those international value chains.
Thank you. Pamela, let me pass the final word to you. You mentioned at the beginning just how much of the world's economy is driven by small businesses. When you think about the enormous challenges of the green transition, the extent to which we have to re-engineer the entire business sector, how optimistic are you that the SME sector is able to continue being the motor of the global economy?
Are you hearing me? Yes?
Yeah.
The way we at the International Trade Center actually see SMEs in the Green Deal and in the greening of production is once we ensure that adopting sustainable practices is not only about businesses being good, it's also about making good business in transitioning to green. And the changing demands in international markets and new regulations are making a green shift for small businesses no longer an option, but also a requirement. And supporting them is therefore essential for the planet and our environment as much as for youth, women, and fragile communities that rely on them. So in other words, there's no question that going green is going to be, in a sense, a sine qua non for moving forward, for recovery, for development, and for being able to continue to be drivers of the international economy. And I think that that is part of the necessity for us to continue working with them on sustainable green practices, on helping them to actually go green, to compete, and actually enabling them to take advantage of the market opportunities that are out there. Thanks.
Thank you, Pamela. And one last point while I still have you here. The COVID has really put the focus on Africa as a source for manufacturing. And there's been enormous interest and political attention to creating supply chains in Africa for vaccines, for PPE and other equipment. Do you see that as a huge opportunity to link the health and well-being agenda with the green agenda?
Transformational opportunity, frankly. I think that if we're able to link, and also if we look at the African continental free trade area and what it means for how Africa will begin to look at the connectivity between its supply chains and how it will begin to look at exports and how it will begin to look at international markets as a joint single market. The entire process of linking both green and vaccine production, etc., is going to be a transformational process for Africa. And I look forward to being part of that because I think it's going to be a phenomenal next 2 decades.
Thank you. And on that really optimistic note, I'd like to bring our stand interview to a close. You've highlighted for us the value of working with SMEs and the point that, it's not just good business, it's business for good, and how much this is part of the global transformation. So thank you very much to Annegret and to Pamela. And I'll bring this stand interview to a close.